that constitution approved by the Libyan people, then the country will be ruled accordingly, and all the political, economic, social lives will be dealt with according to the constitution. We are looking for Libya in the future to have a constitutional government, democracy, and multi-party system. We'd like to see Libya has an equality between its citizens in front of the law, and to have equal opportunities for everybody. We're looking for Libya to be a stability, to be stable and to provide stability to the region.
All right.
And also to cooperate with all nations around the world.
All right, Mr. Ibrahim Sahad, the Secretary General for the National Front for the Salvation of Libya, that's an opposition group, talking to us there from Washington. Thank you. Well, Muammar Gaddafi may still be holding on to political power, but it seems that he's losing control of the country's oil fields. There are suggestions one of his opponents has taken charge of oil terminals, and that's near the city of Benghazi. While there are reports as well the nation's oil production is set to shut down completely. Here's Nadim Baba.
For the time being at least, Muammar Gaddafi maintains his grip on Tripoli. But reports out of Libya's second city, Benghazi, suggest oil terminals to the east of the capital are now in the hands of the colonel's opponents. People calling themselves revolutionaries say they're protecting the terminals, but it's unclear what will happen to exports. Some experts say Libya's daily output of 1.6 million barrels is already down a quarter. One Italian firm claims the drop's more like 3/4. As foreign oil firms suspend production in Libya, employees are heading home. At Tripoli's international airport, one of them told AlJazeera's James Bays these were frightening times for him and his colleagues.
We were trying to get in the terminal building, and maybe 5,000 people out there, and we had a very difficult time pushing and shoving. We're just about at the doors, and we got beaten back. I don't know, military people, it's batons.
There's fear too on the financial markets. For a while on Thursday, petrol prices were at their highest for 2.5 years. The big question, of course, is how regional turmoil might impact on Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia is the only big producer of oil that has spare capacity to produce more, and I think it would be very willing to do so, you know, if things became much more unstable. And it also, of course, is the biggest producer, so it has vast quantities of it. And I think that Saudi Arabia is also particularly concerned about the instability, because after all, Saudi Arabia itself could become a victim. You know, who knows? So I think that I think the Saudis are the ones to watch.
Saudi Arabia is now said to be talking to European refineries, offering to fill the gap left by Libya. But the longer the unrest goes on, the greater the threat to the local and the global economy. Nadim Baba, Al Jazeera.
Well, the United States has taken an active role in recent years in persuading Muammar Gaddafi to neutralize his country's chemical weapons, but there are concerns over just how many he may still have access to. For more on that, we can cross to Daljeet Dhaliwal in Washington. Daljeet.
Doreen, thanks very much. Libya's former justice minister says that Colonel Gaddafi has chemical weapons that he may use, but Washington is downplaying the threat, saying that the materials in question remain secure. So let's take a closer look at just what is at stake. In 2003, soon after Saddam Hussein was toppled in Iraq, Libya agreed to dismantle its nuclear and chemical weapons programs. In return, the Bush administration resumed diplomatic relations and lifted economic sanctions. The following year, Libya destroyed 3,300 empty aerial bombs used to disperse mustard gas and other chemical agents. But disputes between Washington and Tripoli over funding and logistics have delayed plans to do away with Libya's chemical agents and its chemical weapons production facility. Libya was to have destroyed all 23 tons of mustard gas by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, but 9.5 tons remain. The OPCW says that Libya was granted an extension until this May to get rid of the rest. Well, for more on all of this, I'm joined by Jonathan B. Tucker, who's an expert on chemical and biological weapons. He was also a United Nations biological weapons inspector in Iraq in 1995. Thank you very much for coming in and talking to Al Jazeera about this subject. What exactly does Libya have right now that it can actually weaponize, which would cause great damage?
Well, it has about 50% of its original stockpile of mustard agent, which is a blister agent. It causes harm by causing severe chemical burns to the skin and the eyes, and if inhaled can be fatal. Libya also has a number of precursor chemicals that could be used to make nerve agents, but it was never able to actually produce those chemicals, which are much more deadly than mustard gas.
So can it weaponize what it has right now?
Probably not, at least in a militarily significant way, because, as you mentioned in your intro, 3,300 aerial bombs designed for the delivery of chemical weapons were destroyed by the OPCW back in 2004. So if Libya were to use its chemical agent, which is in bulk form, it would have to develop, for example, IEDs, or very primitive delivery devices.
Nevertheless, he has made some terrible, horrific threats against the Libyan population. Is something like his chemical weapons, whatever is remaining of his stockpile, is it likely that this threat is real enough for the international community to be concerned about it, or is this something that's going to, you know, come May, he's going to get rid of them basically?
Well, I think there are two grounds for concern. One, that the agent could be delivered in a very crude manner, even just poured on the ground, because anyone who came in contact with that material would be severely burned. There is also the risk that if he deploys his troops away from the bunkers where the bulk agent is stored, there might be some danger of terrorists getting access to that material and using it to create, for example, chemical IEDs. So there is a security risk associated with even the bulk agent.
But presumably these weapons would be secure, wouldn't they?
At the moment, they're secured at Rabta, which is about 65 kilometers southwest of Tripoli. It is heavily guarded, but in extremis, if Saddam were to redeploy those troops, those stocks could potentially be vulnerable.
All right, Mr. Tucker, got to leave it there, but thank you very much. Well, the United States has called for Libya's expulsion from the United Nations Human Rights Council. The council is discussing Libya on Friday, the first time that it is holding a special session investigating one of its members, and AlJazeera's Scott Heidler. He joins me now from the United Nations. Scott, we're expecting another meeting tomorrow at the United Nations. Is this going to be the definitive one where they actually come out with a plan of action, or are we more likely to see more words and more meetings coming out of this?
Well, I think we're kind of in between, if you will. On Tuesday, we saw the Security Council come out with a press statement condemning the violence in Libya, and as you can imagine, that was met with a lot of disappointment because there was no teeth in that. That was just simply a statement condemning what Colonel Muammar Gaddafi was doing in Libya. But what we're looking at tomorrow, and we just got confirmation from the French mission that this is going to take place at 3 p.m. local time on Friday. It's going to be security